Amen. Go ahead and have a seat. Good morning, Vertical Church. Well, I have been waiting for months to introduce this man to you. Back in January, the elders hired Matt Moore as the executive pastor candidate. Candidate word because the pastoral process, the eldership process takes some time. And Matt has already served our church tremendously, but he has served our church tremendously while suffering tremendously. As soon as he accepted this ministry post, he and his family have just been hit with wave after wave of hardships and trials. And so this isn't just a sermon this morning. This is a sermon that has been ripened by many sorrows and many tears and much enduring faith. So Vertical Church, let's lean in now and welcome Matt Moore to the stage.
Hey, good morning, Vertical Church. Before I jump into the sermon, the first thing I want to do is introduce you to my family. I think there's going to be a photo up here. Thank you very much. This was last week, Easter. We weren't able to make it to the Easter service. Actually, we planned to, and then I fell down those stairs on Friday. So we didn't make it. My wife, Talitha, we've been married for 6 years. On the right is my daughter, Elizabeth, my pride and my joy. She's 2 years old. And then in the middle there is my new son named Liam. He's 10 weeks old, and he spent the first 7 weeks of his life in the cardiovascular ICU unit at Children's Hospital. And I'll share a little bit more about that. But they couldn't be here today, but I wanted you to meet them. So this is my family, the Moore family, the better looking part of the Moore family. How many of you this morning, and I want you to raise your hand if it applies to you, how many of you this morning are suffering in some way? A big way, a thank you. Raise your hands. Big way, small way. Doesn't have to be hospital stuff. It can be fractured ankle stuff. There are a lot of so-called Bible teachers today that would stand in front of you, as I am, and tell you that it is not God's will that you should suffer in this life. Listen to this quote from a website of one of these teachers. I'm not going to name who it is. He has a ministry in Texas, close to where I grew up. They write, "It is not God's will for you to be sick. It is not God's will for you to be in lack. It is not God's will for you to be depressed. It is not God's will for you to suffer tragedy of any kind. We can overcome any adversity." And what he means by that is escape the experience of adversity. We can overcome any adversity by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Now, shorthand for this kind of theology is the prosperity gospel. Some of you have probably heard of that. Prosperity gospel teachers claim that if you have true faith in Jesus and you live obedient to his word, you can be freed of any affliction or suffering in this life. They view faith, which we've been talking a lot about over the last several months, as this decisive, maybe even magical mechanism by which you tap into the power of God and unleash divine blessings of health, wealth, and prosperity into your life. They base this theology on real Bible verses, like Psalm 103:3. God heals all our diseases. Or Isaiah 53:5. By his stripes, Jesus' stripes, we are healed. Or Mark 9:23. For him that believes, all things are possible. All things. These are true verses. Gloriously true verses. But where the prosperity people go wrong is in taking these biblical promises and truths out of their biblical context, divorcing them from everything else that the Bible teaches about the reality that we currently live in. From everything else that the Bible teaches about what the Christian life is like, from between Jesus' first coming, when he inaugurated his kingdom, and his second coming, in which he consummates his kingdom. They ignore passages like 2 Corinthians 12, where Paul, a man of faith who knew how to exercise faith rightly, asks God three times, to bring relief to his suffering. And God says no. Or Revelation 2, where Jesus tells Christians in Smyrna that Satan is about to throw some of them into prison. And he doesn't follow that up with a promise to get them out, like he had sent the angel to get Peter and James, I think, out of prison. Instead, he says, Satan's going to throw some of you into prison. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Be faithful unto death. And then after you suffer and after you die, I will give you the crown of life. Brothers and sisters, a glorious, super joyful, trouble-free, suffering-free future is coming. A crown of life is coming for each of our heads later. Jesus will return with world-renovating power in his hands, usher in a new heavens and a new earth where there will be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, nor pain, because, the scripture says, the former things have passed away. But right now, those former things that caused the grief, the sorrow, the crying, and the pain are present things. In this life, God is really good to us. But he does not promise to heal all of our diseases. He does not promise to mend all of our broken relationships. He doesn't promise to give us the career or the job that we love or the salary package that goes along with it. He does not promise to bring us a spouse. He does not promise to give us healthy kids. He doesn't even promise to give us kids. Now, sometimes he does these things. A lot of times he does these things. But he doesn't promise to do them. So when he doesn't do them, he's not following through on any promises that he's made. In this life, Christians will experience all the same kinds of sufferings that everyone else does, plus a couple of uniquely Christian ones, like persecution. But we don't experience our suffering in the same way that everybody else does. Turn in your Bibles to Psalm 46. Psalm 46. Pastor Chris asked me this morning to share with you guys what God has been teaching me and my family through some of the trials that we've been walking through. And I've chosen to do so from this text, though there were a few other competitors, because verses 1 to 3 in particular are where my heart has continually gravitated as we've endured this trial. So Psalm 46, I'm going to read the whole thing, and then we'll come back and look at different parts of it. Verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage and kingdoms totter. When he utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Beautiful song. And in it, we see two big realities. The first one is that God's people, his beloved people, face trouble. It's right there in verse 1. God is a very present help. Where? In trouble. God's people face troubles in this life. And not just like lowercase t troubles, like ankle fractures. That might be a capital T trouble. Verses 2 and 3 are a metaphor for the very worst kind of thing happening. I think that's why I've been so drawn to it over the last several months. The earth giving way, the mountains falling into the sea, the ocean waves roaring with threats. It's all signifying the kind of capital T trouble that violently rocks your world. The kind that violently shakes you out of the illusion which we so easily fall into, that this life, that this world, that it's a relatively safe and comfortable place to be. It's the kind of trouble that invaded my family's life last November. When my wife was 22 weeks pregnant or so, we learned that our baby had a really serious heart condition called truncus arteriosus. Now, some heart conditions are serious, but may not require immediate medical intervention, may just need to be monitored. This, unfortunately, is not one of those. Babies with this condition will die within days or months after their birth. So, our little boy, who we didn't know was a boy at the time, would need open heart surgery within days after being born, followed by a couple of months in the cardiovascular ICU over at Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. And the trouble, unfortunately, would not end there. He, because of just the way that his particular heart is defected, will need multiple open heart surgeries throughout his childhood. When we received this news, the earth gave way beneath our feet. Fast forward some months, 2 days after Liam was born, Talitha finally got discharged from the hospital, and so we came home to see our little daughter, who we hadn't seen in 4 days, and we saw her, and we were getting ready to go back up to the hospital to see Liam, and we get a call from the ICU, and they tell us that they had been performing life-saving measures on our baby, and that we needed to get up there immediately. So we did. We live just a few minutes away. We're walking into the ICU probably 20 minutes later, and there's a chaplain there waiting on us at the door. And as she takes us into a private room, I see the way that staff and nurses are looking at us with just pity in their eyes. It felt like I was in a movie, except it wasn't a movie, it was my life. The doctor then came into the room and sat down and told us that Liam had gone into respiratory failure. His lungs stopped working, which then triggered a cardiac arrest. His heart stopped beating. And he died for 12 minutes. It took them 12 minutes of manual CPR to get this little 2-day-old baby heart pumping and lungs breathing again. We walked into his room a few minutes later, and our 2-day-old baby, who that morning had looked relatively normal, he hadn't had surgery yet, so he looked relatively normal. He really was doing okay as he awaited surgery. He is now stretched out on a hospital bed that is way too big for him. He's unconscious. He's hooked up to a respirator and all other manner of wires and tubes that are keeping him alive. And we don't know yet if he's got brain damage. We don't know yet if he's going to survive this and make it to surgery. As I walked to the left side of his bed, I stretched out my hand, trying to find an open place of skin. I mean, he's completely covered in all kinds of stuff. One of the things I remember is there's a drop of blood, like on the left side of his face, that they hadn't gotten off. I reach out and I find a place on his arm, and immediately as I start to pray for him, my soul just crumbled. The earth gave way beneath my feet. The mountains crumbled and moved into the heart of the sea. The waters roared and foamed. It's the worst day of my life. God's people face trouble. That's the first reality that we see in Psalm 46. The second reality that we see is that God is with his people as they face trouble. Look at the second half of verse 1 there. God is a very present help in trouble. That was my heart needs that. My heart needs to hear that God is a very present help. Not a far off help, not an eventual help, not a theoretical or psychological help, but a very present and real help. Now look at verses 4 and 5. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. The city of God is where the people of God are. I understand city of God as the people of God. There's a river whose streams make glad the people of God, which is the holy habitation, the dwelling place of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. And then the refrain in verses 7 and 11. The Lord of hosts is with us. The Lord of hosts is with us. Earlier I said that the Christians, though we experience all the same kinds of sufferings that everybody else experiences in this life, we don't experience them in the same way. And this here is the distinguishing factor. God is with us. Now, some of you have brains like mine that for whatever unfortunate and twisted reason hear amazing truths like this, and you're like, I really don't want to respond as if like that's really true, so I'm going to dim down the brightness of truth like this with my great reasoning. And you're probably thinking something like, well, yeah, Matt, God's with us. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. He's with you. He's with me. He's with the squirrels and the trees. He's in my closet at home. God is everywhere. He is everywhere. But he's not everywhere in the same way. Jesus is not present at the right hand of the Father in the same way that he's present in my closet at home. He's in those places differently, right? And the point of Psalm 46 is that God is with us differently than he is with everybody else. The creator of all things. We have such a tendency to view God as smaller, more humanized than what He is. Think about the majesty and transcendence of God, the creator of all things, ultimate reality himself, the one without beginning or end, the one who is himself power and beauty and joy and love. He is with us, uniquely and manifestly with us. Now, Psalm 46 shows us at least 3 ways that this is true. I debated whether I was going to make this subtle dig in all 3 services, but I'm going to do it. I don't like alliteration as much as some other people do, but it happens to really serve me today, and it really fits with this text, so I'm going to do it. Here is the very Christopher Osmus sentence that I want you to remember when you think about God's manifest presence with us as depicted in Psalm 46. The Lord is protection, power, and peace for his people. The Lord is protection, power, and peace for his people. Say it with me and say it loud. The Lord is protection, power, and peace for his people. The psalmist uses military imagery to communicate God's protective presence among his people. Verse 1, God is our refuge. Verses 7 and 11, the God of Jacob is our fortress. Now, one of the things I love most about this psalm is that the language here does not say that God provides us a refuge or a fortress. He does do that, and that is good news. I like that reality and truth. But I like that it's not written that way here. It's not that God provides us a refuge or a fortress, but that God is our refuge and fortress. He himself is our safety. He himself is the invincible, fortifying reality surrounding us, guarding us, protecting us. Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, is our refuge and fortress. What's he protecting us from? Obviously, he doesn't protect us from the experience of trouble. If he did, my son would not be at home, right? You saw in the picture the feeding tube coming out. You probably wonder, what's that thing? It's a feeding tube. He has a feeding tube protruding out of his stomach. That's how he eats. He's got a big scar on his chest. If God protected us from trouble, Paul wouldn't have continued to be tormented by a messenger of Satan. The Christians in Revelation 2 wouldn't have been thrown into prison. God does not protect us from trouble. But he does protect us in it from being destroyed by it. The big idea here in Psalm 46 is that God's people are going to get through their troubles. God's people are going to come out on the other side of the earth crumbling beneath their feet and the waters roaring and foaming. They're going to come out on the other side of that intact. In the words of verse 5 there, they will not be moved. Now, as you hear that, I hope that some of you are thinking about that Revelation 2 text that I've referenced a couple of times. I hope that you're remembering that some of those Christians who Satan threw into prison, what happened to them? They were killed. They didn't get through their trouble. They didn't come out on the other side of their suffering intact. They came out dead, otherwise known as destroyed. In one sense, yes, that's absolutely true. They were destroyed. But in another, much, much, much more important sense, they were not. Remember what Jesus said that he would do for them after they died. And I will give you the crown of life after you die. Their bodies were killed, yes, but their souls lived on and entered into paradise, entered into eternal glory. Though they died, they live. and they will live forever. Think about, like, Jesus is not talking to imaginary people in Revelation 2. These are real Christians like you and me that he's saying, Satan is coming after you. He's going to throw you into prison, and some of you are going to die. And they did. Real people. These real people died 2,000 years ago, and they are alive today, 2,000 years later. They got through their troubles. They came out on the other side of their suffering intact. And they came out intact because they continued to love and trust and obey the Lord all the way to the end. The New Testament is really clear that only those who persevere in faith to the end will be saved in the end. You even hear it in Jesus' words in Revelation 2. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Brothers and sisters, the only way that you and I can be truly destroyed by the sufferings of this life is if in them our faith dies. So it's no surprise that Satan's aim for every believer in this room is to do whatever it takes to obliterate your trust in the Lord, your love for the Lord, your belief that he is for you. Now, we can talk about Satan's activity in a way that's more extravagant than what it should be. Not every harm that comes our way is directly caused by Satan, but I think today, 21st century, Western, secularized culture, I think we vastly underestimate what is caused by him. And I think we vastly underestimate his ability and practice to swoop into hard situations that he did not directly bring about and lie to us about the character of God in those situations, tempting us to believe all kinds of horrible, untrue things about the God who loves us so that we will turn our back on him. I think about Jesus in the wilderness after he had fasted for 40 days. The text says he was hungry. Now, Satan didn't cause Jesus to be in this weak state of hunger, but he entered into the situation, hoping to capitalize on Jesus' circumstantial difficulty and weakness in order to get him to sin against God. I also think about Ephesians 4:26, where Paul says, not to let your anger fester and give an opportunity to the devil to enter into that. Satan doesn't cause every bad thing that happens to us, but he is an opportunist. He prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour, whispering into our ears, God is not with you. He does not care about you. He may not even be real. That last one is the one I hear a lot. The Christian life, before all of this happened with my family over the last 6 months, my life was still hard. The Christian life is hard. Life in this world is hard. And I have often been doubted. Is any of this true? The way that I've oriented my life completely around what this book says, is it even true, or am I just a fool? Did I just believe it because I grew up in a context where it was saturated? It may not even be real. The devil is conspiring to push us away from the Lord permanently, because he knows that if he can do that, he can destroy us eternally. So the New Testament's really clear that we are called to persevere in faith to the very end. We will be saved if we persevere in faith to the very end. And the New Testament is also gloriously clear that demonic conspiracies against God's people to get them to fall away will not ultimately prevail. Why? Because God, our big sovereign God, ensures that all of his children will persevere in faith to the end. Not perfectly, but really. They really will persevere. Philippians 1, Paul says, I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. Jude 24, now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling permanently and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy. And Romans 8, my absolute favorite. And those whom God foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified. Brothers and sisters, if you believe in Jesus Christ today, if you've been called to him, it's because you were predestined to come to Jesus Christ. And God will ensure that you get all the way to glorification. From beginning to end, your salvation is a sovereign work of God. It cannot be thwarted. God is our refuge. He protects us. He preserves us in faith. Now, how does he preserve us? How does he ensure that we continue believing? By empowering us to continue believing. God is protection for his people, and he is power for his people. Look again at verse 1, Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength. 2 Corinthians 12, which I almost preached on this morning, but decided not to. But I'm still going to kind of do it here. 2 Corinthians 12 is a great case study of the strength of God manifest in the life of a troubled and weak Christian. So Satan has assigned one of his messengers to torment the Apostle Paul. And Paul pleads with God, as we've seen already, 3 times to relieve this suffering, and God does not. Instead, he says, my grace is sufficient for you, Paul. For my power is made perfect. It's perfectly manifested in weakness. And Paul changes his tune. Then I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses. So why? So that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Paul learns that the power of God, the strength of God, is far superior to his own. Paul's suffering brought him to a point of weakness that he thought that he needed to be delivered from. He probably believed that his weakness caused by this messenger of Satan was hindering his effectiveness in ministry, was hindering his fruitfulness in life. I could be a more joyful person. I could pour myself out more for the good of others if I didn't have this thing, this thorn in my life. So God, please remove it. He thought he needed his strength back to do the will of God. But in reality, his weakness was the pathway, the channel for a much greater power that would prove much more effective and bear much more fruit. I'm seeing, yet again, this paradoxical reality working out in my own life. And this is not the first suffering that I've been through. I was diagnosed with OCD in 2018. That's a second runner to this suffering. It has been one of the most difficult things that I've ever endured in my life. And I am seeing, yet again, this paradoxical reality work out in my own life. On the day that we found out something was wrong with our baby's heart, I told my wife, this wasn't the first thing I said. It was after tears and things like that. I told my wife that my greatest fear was not that our baby would die. My greatest fear was that our faith would fail. To be totally honest, I did not go into this season in a spiritually wonderful place. I could sense my love for the Lord, my desires for him are just weaker. My belief in what this book says, it's weaker. I had become dull. In the weeks leading up to Liam's birth, I read the words that Job spoke after God allowed Satan to kill all of his children. He said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Now, I know that blessed be the name of the Lord, praising the name of the Lord, was a tear-stained blessing and praise, but it was real for Job. And I could not, in that moment, picture myself saying that and meaning it if the same thing happened to me. At some point over the last couple of years, my love for my kids had outgrown my love for God. I knew that if my faith was to survive, I needed God to visit my heart in power. I couldn't make myself love him more. I needed him to enlarge my love for him and push it beyond the boundaries of my love for my kids so that if faced with that kind of terrible loss, I could be a person who could say the words Job did, "Blessed be the name of the Lord," and actually mean them. I needed God to move powerfully in my heart. And he has graciously been doing that in this season. I say do, not done. He's doing it. Work in progress. In the midst of this trial with Liam, trials are like this, it's more than just feeling sad. It's more than just the emotional toll that it takes on you. Our lives are so pressurized in every way. For 7 weeks, we're torn. We got one kid over here at home and one kid in the hospital, and she's too young to go to the hospital, so she's never even met her brother before. Our family of 4 has never been in the same room. We're split between 2 places, trying to juggle it all. And having 2 kids under 2 in and of itself is hard. Having 2 kids under 2 with a newborn with a feeding tube, we are maxed out. We are totally maxed out, and I feel weaker than I've ever felt in myself. And paradoxically, I feel stronger than I've ever felt. Spiritually healthier than I've ever felt. Because the God who is power himself is with me. God is protection for his people. His power for his people. Finally, he's peace for his people. Look again at verses 1 to 2. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, even if the worst thing imaginable happens. In other words, because God is our refuge, because he is our protection, because God is our strength, because he is our power, we are at peace in the face of any suffering that could possibly come our way. Every day for the last several months, I've lived with a pretty constant awareness that my son could die from this condition or from a complication of his treatment. That's what happened the first time. And this has made me just be even more aware that my daughter, who has no medical conditions that we're aware of, could also die at any moment for any number of reasons. Life is but a vapor. Live in a constant awareness of this. But most of the time, I'm not living in fear of it. And it's not that I'm avoiding the experience of paralyzing fear because I'm telling myself that it won't happen. You know, people do that a lot. They soothe themselves, they comfort themselves by saying, it's going to be okay. The baby is going to come home. They're going to be fine. The cancer is going to go away. My family will get back together. I will get married one day. This incessant battle against the anxious and depressive thoughts that intrude on my mind every day, it'll get better. It's not going to last. They generate a counterfeit peace in themselves, which doesn't ever last for long, by assuring themselves of positive outcomes that they can't guarantee. So far as I know myself, which is imperfectly, the growing peace that I feel in the face of today's trouble and all the potential troubles of tomorrow is not the result of lying to myself. It's the result of believing that the content of this book actually corresponds to reality. It's actually telling me about the reality that I live in. The most important truth of that reality, there is a God who loves me. There's a God who is with me, who protects me, who empowers me, and who works all things for my good. Even the bad things, even the hard things. I preached Psalm 46 this morning, but I could have just easily preached Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Nothing anchors my soul in peace like the fact that my big sovereign God, who controls all things at all times, including all people and everything that they do, works everything for my good. This means that nothing, not cancer, not the death of a child, not joblessness, not the consequences of my own sinful and stupid decisions, not satanic lies, not demonic ploys, nothing will thwart God's plan to get Matt Moore all the way from predestination to glorification. Nothing will keep me away from an eternity of total safety and ever-increasing, ever-compounding joy in the presence of Jesus Christ, who loved me and gave himself for me. All of that is true because Jesus loved me and gave himself for me. All of that is true for you, believer, because Jesus loved you and gave himself for you. His blood purchased a lot. You're good forever. As we leave here and you face the troubles of this life, and I don't know a lot of you. I know a few of you. I encourage you, and if you see me hobbling around, I'm moving slow these days. Bombard me. Like, I want to know you. Introduce yourself to me. But I do know a few of you, and the few of you that I do know, among them is capital S suffering. Some of you are facing really, really difficult circumstances in your life. And as you go out and you persevere in faith in those circumstances, hear the Lord of hosts speaking the words of verse 10 over you. Be still. That doesn't mean just go meditate in a field. It means cease from all your worrying. Cease from all your striving. Cease from all your working. Let go. Be still and know that I am God. The Lord of hosts is with us. He's our protection, our power, and our peace. For today's trouble, for tomorrow's trouble, until the day that there is no more trouble. He will get you through to the end. Let's pray with me, please. God,